With this, I would like to call upon, join me in welcoming Deepa Bhushan, who is the Director Schools, CP Goenka International Schools. Welcome, Ms. Deepa. Thanks for joining us. And also Preeti Kotara, Chairperson, Petal Group of Schools. Thanks for joining us, Preeti. And we're also joined by Seema Saini, CEO and Principal, NL Dalmia Educational Society. Thanks for joining us. And Dr. Raina Jain, Director and Head, Witty Group of Institution. Thanks for joining us, Dr. Raina. And we are also joined by Anjali Razdan, who is Director Academics, Solan Public School, Himachal Pradesh. Thanks for joining us, Anjali ji. And also Rashmi Busi Reddy, who is the co-founder for Campus Crop. Thanks for joining us, Ms. Rashmi. So with this, all our eminent panelists who come with decades of experience in the school education sector. Thanks for joining us. And I would request Deepa Bhushan to take over. Over to you, Deepa.
Thank you. Thank you. It is indeed our pleasure to be a part of the virtual APAC Global Education and Skill Conclave, which is organized by APAC News Network in association with the Collegiate and Technical Education Department, Government of Telangana. I welcome our esteemed panelists as well as our audience for this session. Well, as you all know, the theme for today's session is quality in education in a contemporary world scenario and the way ahead. I think that's a question that's in all our minds. How do we proceed? So the term 21st century has become an integral part of educational thinking and planning for the future. Educators are actively searching for ways to prepare students for the future, and the educational system has been evolving faster than ever before. I think today's times have proved that more than anything, that change is the only constant. And the rate of change has been fast forwarded in the field of education. We had to change the way we live, interact, work, teach, and learn. If it hadn't happened now, it would have happened a few years later, but it surely would have happened. So reflecting this change, today's organizations and people are looking for skill sets and, most importantly, growth mindsets. Schools cannot continue to just teach or, the way they were doing earlier, but have to prepare students for the unknown, volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous world. We call it the VUCA world. And the pandemic has shown us more than anything that this is the VUCA world. So students need to display a growth mindset to learn, unlearn, and relearn. And therefore, arises the need to change the traditional role of schools, and within them, teacher as the expert or the sage on the stage, standing and delivering content from the front of the room, to a coach really, who is not only coaching, but also mentoring students and is looking at an individualized approach to teaching and preparing for the future unknown. So taking that into account, we have our esteemed panelists who are going to answer a few questions which are on our mind, and maybe we'll find a path ahead through these questions. I'd first like to request Ms. Seema Saini, CEO and Principal of NL Dalmia Educational Society, to answer this question really, because it starts with the tip or the top, whatever we'd like to call it, that what do governments and management of schools need to do to bring about this change? You need to unmute yourself, Seema. Sorry.
Thank you, Deepa. And good afternoon, good evening to all of you. It's a pleasure to be here on this platform with each one of you here this evening. Yes, I think it's very, very important that we reflect on these aspects that we are discussing, because as we noticed, the pandemic just came on, and those who were future ready took on smoothly. So it is extremely important that we reflect on our situations, our conditions, and see how we can adapt and adopt to come to terms with the change. Government, of course, and the management or the they become the key facilitators in ensuring that the baseline infrastructure is present to be giving this. When we talk of 21st century skills, when you're talking of this VUCA world, we understand that it's very important that each student, each child is able to develop his critical thinking, if we want innovations in future for the country, for the world, the way the world is shaping up, it's very, very important that each child, like we just heard the speaker before us, that we look at all the three aspects. We need to ensure that our children are cash rich. So when we say cash rich, I'm not talking of the green, the cash aspect in that terms, but KASH. And the abbreviation is definitely knowledge, skills, habit, and character, or attitude that a child or a student would develop. So K for knowledge, A for attitude, S for skills, and H for habits. Now, how does the child become innovative, become creative? Of course, the critical thinking skills and all of these aspects need to be developed. We understand pedagogical changes would need to be done. We understand interdisciplinary approach will have to be brought in, because the world is not in straight jackets or in silos. Everything is integrated. Your art, science, and as we call it, the STEAM now, the science, technology, mathematics, and the art part has to come together for this world to be able to function to its optimum level. So your question, Deepa, coming pinpointing government and to the managements, I would first talk of government. I had the fortune, I would say, of being on a delegation, on a US delegation to Taiwan. And it was about a school exchange and understanding educational systems in Taiwan in comparison to US. And I was on the panel, of course, I had my own interest that how is it similar to the Asian school system? How different, I was just comparing and contrasting India, Taiwan at that time. In what ways are we similar? In what ways are we distinct? What was so unique over there? And I'm talking of the year 2000, I think it was 15 or 15 or 16. And what was so distinct was that each province that they went on to see what was the livelihood of their that particular town or that particular city, and that was integrated in the mainstream curriculum in schools. So this is where the government can play a role. So if you have those coastal cities or coastal towns and villages, the mainstream curriculum should adopt or include something to do with those practices. Say if they are coastal, then fishing and rowing, or the cold storage. So all of this will help the school systems to adopt in a way that when students are out there, and of course the pedagogy needs to be relevant. They need to bring in integrated systems. They need to bring in interdisciplinary methods, and with your science and technology and all of that, I'm not disturbing the core curriculum. I'm saying if this has to be interdisciplinary, this needs to come together. So when the government infrastructure and baseline platform is there, then you know that, okay, when you're talking of the new education policy, it's very, very good that they're thinking in terms of bringing in a very child-centered, experiential learning, project method. They're talking of all of this with the foundational level education, with the elementary level education. So it is you can see the glimpses of that definitely. And the new education policy definitely reflects on the need and the importance of bringing in interdisciplinary or focusing on learning outcomes, let me say. And if the focus is on learning outcomes, definitely you see children achieving. So I feel the government needs to, at this point of time, bring in a baseline infrastructure to integrate all of this together. And about the organizations and managements, of course, if we need to bring in new orientations. If we talk of, we expect positive outcomes, we need to see as school managements that the organizations have to be right there, providing the best, including whether you look at pedagogy, you look at training and development, a continuous professional development is required for you to be ready for the changes that come in. I understand there could be a limitation of time, but this is a vast topic by itself. The government itself can do a lot related to the topic. And then when we talk of the school management systems, of course, the meaning and the purpose has to be very clear in mind. And if we have the meaning and the purpose in mind, then everything you set out to do with the goal, with the vision that what kind you're making global citizens, future ready citizens, or any pandemic or anything that comes in. It's a very complex world. Like we are talking of the VUCA world, ambiguous, it's complex, and we don't know how it might pan out in the future. So if we have the things in place, you can quickly adapt and adjust and take on the changes in this new world. So fresh approach is definitely required by the management. So all your online teaching learning could come at a standstill if you do not have the proper mbps lines, or you don't have the wi-fi enable systems, learning management systems that are required. So that is, say, the financial aspect that can take care of it. But the vision, the growth mindset is more important to bring in that positive change. And if the vision is there with the management and they work towards that, definitely the goalpost is not really very far.
Very true, Seema. You've rightly said it. And I think about where you're coming from and where you're saying that reflection and therefore adapting and then adopting, I think that as a base is going to really create the change that we're looking at. And maybe governments and management of schools need to do that, come back with the vision. And of course, with the vision comes the funding too, which is extremely important in today's time. And of course, the cultural context, like you said, of the learners and geographical context too. Yes. Because right now it's become a global space. So you have people from all across the cultures in different spaces. So that too needs to happen. Very true. And I think if that happens, learning would proceed towards the change that we're looking at. Thank you very much, Seema, for your thoughts on this.
Deepa, thanks. Sorry to interrupt you. Before you proceed further, I missed, my apologies, I missed on two important panelists who have joined us. Dr. Ritu Chauhanji, Vice President, Manipal Academy of Health and Education. Thanks for joining us, Dr. Rituji. Thank you very much. And also Dr. Raina Jain, who is Director and Head for Vitti Group of Institutions. Thank you so much, Dr. Raina, for joining us. Sorry for interruption, Deepa, once again, please go ahead.
No worries. So my next question is for Dr. Ritu Chauhan, who's the Vice President of the Manipal Academy of Health and Education. Today's times have shown us that the digital space has become big and really big. So Dr. Ritu, if I could have your viewpoint on how is digital technology changing the face of education, and how do we maintain quality education in the current scenario?
Okay, thank you, Deepa ma'am. First of all, namaskar to all the esteemed panelists over here. And I would like to thank the team of EPIC News Network and Collegiate and Technical Education Department, Government of Telangana, for giving this platform to all of us to connect. Okay, and thank you, Mr. Akash, Mr. Sudhir, and Ms. Shivani and team. Now, coming back to the question, what is quality all about? The main theme, which we all are like, discussing on. Quality is nothing but achieving a specific measured outcome. We only decide what will be the outcome. Normally in our education system, we talk about three very important aspects. I'm a teacher, so that's the reason. Now, learning objective, as Seema ma'am said, there should be a purpose, there should be a vision. So learning objective has to be purposeful. Learning outcome, that is, Atul sir was mentioning about knowledge, skills and habits, so child has to acquire. Now, in between these two, if you look at it, there is a process, okay? Objective we know, outcome we know, but effective learning processes is what we are struggling with at this point of time in this pandemic situation. So here the digital technology is coming for our rescue. We all know we cannot use our traditional classrooms if vaccine also come. We don't know. It is very unprecedented situation at this point of time. So here we took the help of digital technology to ensure that there is no abrupt disconnect of this learning process in between, right? So this technology is changing the face of education on a global scale. When teachers are using technology effectively, it will engage the students in the learning process. Now, this was revealed in the study published in British Journal of Educational Tech. The study does not neglect the importance of teachers. In fact, they say that when teachers have more sophisticated ideas of teaching and learning, they probably use the teaching strategies that result in students being more actively involved in teaching learning management. Now, even Stanford researchers, I was just going through yesterday. So there also, when teachers apply, they said when teachers apply technology, it will improve the learning processes and it will close the achievement gaps between the students. Now, this is a debate thing that whether technology is important or teachers are important. You all must be attending so many times we have spoken about it. That is not the agenda at all. The same report said that replacing teachers with technology is not a successful approach. Students still need their teachers. However, like engaging teachers with technology is currently the best way, I could say, to increase the quality education for our students. Now, when teachers are using digital devices, in outside the classroom, that flipped learning and other things I'm talking about, so they get enough time in the class to evaluate and discuss the topic. They can focus on students' achievements. They can personalize the education system for them. Now, teachers can use variety of methods. There are a whole lot of what you say softwares, or as Atul sir was talking about, machine learning, AI and other things. So we should not get away from these things. We should actually start understanding and absorbing these things, because ultimately technology will stay. Even after pandemic, we are going to have this blended approach of teaching learning. Now, active engagement is very important when you talk about quality in education. Technology is interactive. Students, they learn by doing, by researching, as Seema ma'am was talking about experiential learning. So they receive a lot of feedback, and they become very passionate about what they learn. Like suppose I'm teaching, I taught chemistry to grade 10, I taught geography. So rather than just giving a picture of a place or a continent, I can take interactive software like Google Map, Google Earth, and I can make it very interactive. Recently, our schools have done a virtual trip, Pondicherry, marine ecosystem completely. So in this situation, I'm talking about where you can't go out and this pandemic thing, you can actually make use of technology if you really, remove that block from your mind. Then real world issues. Now, suppose if you're giving your child in a class that, okay, you can use internet, you can research, you can browse. So the curriculum topics, they are connecting with the real world issues. So that also becomes a lot of like, the interaction becomes more effective. Simulation. This is in Kerala, one school, they have adopted it. There I saw that they are bringing real activities inside the classroom. Simulation tools are very effective. Normally we can't see planetary movements, how heart functions, how tornado develops, or how dinosaur lived. But because of this simulation, because of this modeling software, the static models are replaced by these modeling software things, where you see dynamism of these models. Then you can create a lot of rooms like boardrooms, debate room, discussions, working groups, collaboration, group activities. And somewhere I feel teachers have become coaches. They are no more instructors who will just come, deliver and go. No, it's their duty to give them that kind of information which is required, give them that kind of training which will develop their skills, all 21st century skills, what Atul sir was talking about, problem solving, research, decision making and all that. Again, we are all from teaching background, so assessments technology is coming in a big way. I need not to explain that part. Data driven. Now this is something very important. Although I understand teachers are being sometimes we are forced to use online grading tools and devices, but believe me, with the more the data this thing is absorbing, more accuracy is coming. So these analysis tools are bringing quality, very precisely they are giving you the results and feedback to the children. So okay, now coming back again to quality, as people are talking about character, and Seema ma'am was also talking about habits. So in order to make this quality successful, it is very essential to create a quality culture in our schools. The shift of the management from traditional mindset to a quality mindset. Quality requires a change of culture. It requires a change of attitudes, our working methods, and total change in institutional management. It's a system of shared values. All the stakeholders have to come in picture.
True,
Now,
Dr. Ritu, you. And yes, shared values are a must actually. And like you're saying, it has to change in a cultural context. And, there is so much more to building good quality. And like you're saying, I think blended learning is something that is going to continue. And that's where this change, so we can see the pandemic as a boon or a bane. But it has been a boon where digital learning is concerned and taking this forward. Thank you very much for your points. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Taking forward from what you have said, Dr. Ritu, I would now like to invite Ms. Anjali Razdan, Director of the Solon Public School. How do we equip educators and parents to deal with this change scenario? Because right now we see that, the digital world has come in. Quality needs to be there. The 21st century is here. So how do we do that? How do we educate, equip educators and parents?
Yeah, thanks, Deepa. I don't know how to begin the answer because Rituji, Seemaji, Mr. Atul, they have all answered it. So there is, first of all, this COVID-19 has given us a paradigm shift in our entire lifestyle. It's not only education, I guess every aspect of our life has changed. Our values, our humility, our education, even the job scenarios, economic. So under the change circumstances, it's but natural that the acceptance to a change scenario is going to happen. Whether we thrust it on people as we used to do earlier, or it comes automatically by virtue of let's take it because it is the only thing that change is the only constant in life. If I break your question into two parts, one is how do we equip our teachers? Is that what you said, right, man? Teachers. So there's plenty. I mean, in a very simplistic language, teachers, you see, they say that if you put anybody in water and say either you sail or you sink, you better roll your hands and legs and you are going to sail. So this is what happened right now in the pandemic situation when teachers, when all of us were very comfortable teaching along on the blackboard and using the digital boards. We used to use it as a very fancy object, and school used to very proudly say we got digitally smart boards in the classrooms, and maybe 50% of the teachers would use it and 50% would just look at it and say, okay, I'll use it next time. That was the best possible digitalization happening in the classrooms. I'm just talking before March 2019. It's not very far ago. And those who are using it, let me tell you how we were using it. And then I'm including everybody in that. There's no big claims about that. Is that the digital matter of the classroom of a subject was put on the board, and and then the teacher and the taught both would look at it and watch it. So it was more of a demonstration. Okay, we were looking at it together. So let's enjoy a film here. The film would be on either photosynthesis or whatever aspects of teaching learning. That was called digital teaching. Okay, and that was called digital learning, and we were also very proud of it. So now what's going to happen? What happened in the pandemic era, post April, May, June? I mean, we had to bring in teachers to be taught the training, the method of, you don't have to watch the video there. That's not what is digitalization. You have to actually make the video. You have to make the PowerPoints. You have to amalgamate, all kinds of putting, and then you have to go to present it to the kids. You have to also go ahead and use the element of drama in that. And how do you use drama when you're not physically present in front of the kids? The online was such a shaker that it has shaken the entire system. Parents initially were apprehensive. I mean, many of them were of the opinion that I guess online teaching is useless. I think we'll not even pay the fees. I mean, it's a fact. There's no need of paying the fees because there's nothing happening really. Not realizing that the poor teachers had to struggle so much to get out of that shift mode of their thinking from comfort zone to getting onto the tools and techniques, all which Dr. Ritu mentioned and everybody mentioned, such high funda terms which we were only reading in our textbooks before that. Artificial intelligence, and when she talked about the Kerala, the teacher who actually brought an elephant or a tiger in the room, that was augmented learning, augmented reality, I think that's called AR. Now we're actually doing that. And the teachers were thrust into doing that because that is what would be the only way out for online learning. There was no other way out. You cannot have physical contact with each other. So, how do you make them ready? I think the answer is already there. They are ready already, and it's just that we have to get a little more technology savvy. There are a lot of more things coming up in the tech scenario. A little more into that. I guess once you already jumped into it, it's not difficult now to get a little more refined on those lines. As far as the parents are concerned, now that's a bigger problem, I could say, than the teachers, because you see, parents perpetually. I would say it's a blessing in disguise again, because the parents have understood now post this. I mean, the scenario not post. I would still not over, but what it means to rein in one child or two children in the home and to teach them when a teacher is handling 40 or 30 kids or 35 kids in the classroom day in and day out, I guess it is a natural blessing, you know. It has brought the parent, it has levelized them to thinking that, oh my God, teacher, you're the best, you know. So I guess that teacher thing, the parent sensitivity towards the teacher has automatically happened. I would say thank you, COVID. So many things have happened because of COVID, you know.
Yes, the boon is what you're saying.
So many good things have happened. The only bad thing has happened is this, it's a pandemic and it's terrible. But so many things it has taught all of us. To be tech savvy, to get onto education. Now, the best part again is National Education Policy, NEP 2019, now into 2020, is also happened during this time. So all the best things about NEP. I was a member of the panel discussion, not the panel discussion, but consultative committee when we were there, you know, just on the designing time. And we thought that are they possible? That was much before COVID-19. We said no way, it just can't happen. Last December or November, I still remember, and we started giving our points, but never thought it's going to really, you know, take off. It took off in this particular year, and what a coincidence, you know. So the best points of NEP 2019 now getting on to 2020 is going to be now implemented because without thrusting it on anybody, the mindset of people have changed automatically. So going to no rote learning to conceptual learning, going from using the digital media, the technology, it's so automatic now, and the parent sensitization towards the whole scenario is definitely there. I don't think now the only part which possibly is bothering is of course the rural the rural scenario where of course the government has to, you know, chip in their bits to get every child and every parent a little tool, a kit, because we are going to stay with technology once this COVID.
Intervene here a little bit. Completely agree with you, Ms. Anjali.
Yeah.
And I think this is a point that needs to come up for discussion on
Absolutely.
and areas and how do we maintain quality there.
Absolutely.
And that's what we're going to do. And I completely agree with you. The pandemic has been the greatest and the largest
Levelizer.
Yes, leveler, teacher, and has brought about that change. And it really was a sink or swim. And I think everyone swam in the field of education, which is really kudos to the field of education and all the educators in it. Thank you so much. And I think the growth mindset that we saw in the field of education, we didn't see it anywhere else.
Absolutely.
But we also need to develop it for our children. And here I would like to invite Ms. Rashmi. What does a growth mindset really mean and what can be done to develop it? Rashmi, you'll have to unmute yourself.
Yeah, I hope I'm audible now.
Yes,
Thank you, Bhavna ma'am, for this beautiful question. So the scenario currently that we're seeing is actually pushed us and all of us into a growth mindset. Maybe the inertia we had before, now we are more open to changes in technology, and we are doing that definitely. I think sometimes scenarios will push us to do that. So talking about growth mindset, I think it is not just for the students. When we talk, what is actually a growth mindset? You know, sometimes you have to unlearn certain things. You have to, you know, relearn new things and be open to innovations and creations and adapting new technologies and new things, you know, based on the requirement that is out there. So I think growth mindset is not just for the students, but from the side of the parents, but from the people who are there actually in the education scenario. We need to adapt new things as much as possible. So I would like to take this opportunity to present two things that I always had in mind. The first thing, which actually I think will have a huge impact on improving the overall quality in education, is teacher training excellence. A great teacher can influence 1,000 of students. In fact, he has the responsibility and power to make or break the students' interest and inclination towards the subject. So, if it's not maybe being a subject matter expert, but how exactly the concepts are being delivered at a classroom level, I think makes a huge impact to the students. There were a lot of studies which were actually conducted in Uganda and Kenya, in a developing country scenario, where teachers who were trained excellently, I'm not talking about the initial training, but the hand holding, the support they are given, the right kind of infrastructure, be it technology, be it guided and scripts for the conceptual delivery at the classroom level, there was huge improvement in the learning outcomes. I think that is one thing. There is a gap in a country like ours, where they are definitely knowledgeable and have great subject, but I think at the end of the day there is a lot of misalignment between the delivery system, the curriculum, and the learning abilities of the child. Because in a setup like ours, I think 30 to 50 is the average student strength, wherein the students, there are students of different learning abilities, and only adapting to one kind of delivery system in the class setup is being very, very effective. So maybe technological platform or somewhere some guidance to the teachers throughout, wherein they have some inputs about what are the best practices around the world, make the student understand the concept better, create an interactive session. Maybe sometimes some concepts need to be taught more in a simulation method, like how just ma'am has explained, like they have shown an AI blaze, the marine culture, etc. Some needs to be more of practical hands-on things. Some needs to be more of an interactive session. So all these, I think, will make a huge difference in the overall quality in education. I wanted to put forward is about the application-based conceptual learning. Of course, now with the NEP and with all these developments, it is being definitely pushed on, but we see that there is a lot of gap between the skills that are required by the market and the skills that the students are exhibiting, especially in the tertiary education, higher education scenario, where the market requires the kinds of skills, and the students, they might be very good in their grades and they are knowledgeable, but when you come to the skills part, they're still lacking. I think one of the major reason for that, I think, is they're not more into application based understanding of the concept, maybe in the classroom setup, or there should be more of interdepartmental subject relevance should be taught a bit more aggressively at the school level, and also setting up of a career guidance cell kind of thing, which helps the students actually choose the right kind of subjects that they actually their personality, their inclination fits in. I think it provides the goal when they know what are the career options out there, different professions that are out there. I think they will be more motivated to study, and overall they will interact better. I think that there is a lot of even in the NEP, they have suggested that they need to have a career guidance cell in each and every education system, where every student is given the opportunity to understand what is the nature of the profession, what are the skill set that are required. So having a connection at the objective of education is making them ready for the real-time environment. And if we are able to make a connection, make the subject more relevant to the students, I think the overall interaction and the environment in the school would improve, and definitely it will have an impact to the quality in education. Yeah, that's it from my side. Thank you.
Thank you, Rashmi. I think when you said that all stakeholders need to have a growth mindset, yes, extremely important, and goal setting, of course, is needed. Like you said, there's a huge gap in the knowledge as well as the tertiary and skills in the tertiary sector. And I'd now like to invite Ms. Shehnaz Ahmed, Chairman of Springdale High School. So we're understanding there's this huge gap, and we're seeing that knowledge, or maybe we call it the IQ, is no longer the only quotient that we need to develop for children. So what are the other quotients that need to be developed, and why do they need to be developed? Ms. Shehnaz? I think she is not.
We were not introduced to Ms. Shehnaz.
Yeah, she's not on this panel.
Okay, her name was on the list, so all right, maybe she's dropped out. All right, so this is a question that I'm going to then open later for any of you who want to answer this, and I'm going to come back to this question. I'd now like to move to Dr. Raina Jain, Director and Head, Whitty Group of Institutions. So education, that we, broadly speaking, we know that is not just teaching the prescribed syllabus, but opening the mind to multiple possibilities, imbibing life skills, and to some extent preparation for life. How can we use extracurricular activities to integrate student mindfulness in the change scenario?
Thank you, Deepa. In the current situation that we are, the COVID pandemic that all of us have been talking about, we have seen from mild to severe cases of stress, depression, and even abuse to a child. It is very important that mindfulness, I can't call it a subject, but is really integrated into the curriculum and the day-to-day life of a child. Now, like I mentioned, that right from a parent or an adult to a child is stressed nowadays, either buzzing onto their past of what has happened or prodding over the future of, as to what will happen. We all are in that, and especially our urban life. Our lifestyle has become such that we are never without stress and the kind of diseases that we are now facing. Even thankfully to the NAP, they have also focused on mental and physical well-being of a child, which is included in the parameters of the NAP. Now, also other than parents, I think who better than us, we teachers or mentors, to really guide a child into a comfortable, safe, stress-free and relaxed zone. And the best time to do it, of course, is during the school hours and inculcate it into the curriculum. Now, how can we do that? It's not a huge science or, where we need a change in the structure or big equipments to be brought. It's simple, where we as an individual can do something like what yoga and pranayams also teach. Simple things and simple techniques that can be used in the classroom with a child sitting, standing, just a little movement. Things like deep breathing. Make a child relax. Tell them to take in deep breaths. Realize the air that they are breathing in, right from their nose down to their lungs. It really helps in relaxing the stress. Using simple things which we've been learning from our preschool years, sensory experiences or sensorial experiences, using all our senses, taste, smell, touch. How would we do that then? Hearing. So maybe just, okay, we hear there's some chaos in class and tell them, shh, quiet Let's try and listen to the sounds in the environment or around us. Try to smell what kind of fragrances or smells are you getting. Simple things, when we talk of taste, it can be done even during a recess time or tiffin time. Just try to understand what flavors you are getting, what kind of aroma you are getting from the food. Relax yourself, be stress free. Guided imagery or guided imagination. Nowadays, in a classroom where teachers teach, it has, of course, it has now become more into a facilitator. A teacher is now more a facilitator, but still the norm was, I am teaching, you need to listen to me and do what I am saying or behave the way I want you to. Instead of that, use a lot of role play. Like, or maybe if we are teaching types of rocks or types of plants, maybe take them for a nature walk. Like ma'am mentioned about the elephant, or do we have the AR bring in virtually, like when we are talking of places, like we had children, we had a virtual tour to Taiwan, Bangkok. So inculcate these things so that children know more about it, and it brings, draws in their interest, wherein they are more focused on what you are doing, and they leave out the stress. It's a fun way of learning as well. Also, we tell children in class, sit down, fold your hands, no moving, don't do this, don't do that. Why not? Movement for a child, we have kinesthetic learners as well. Movement for a child or a student at any level, even for us, as I'm talking, even I'm moving, is so very important. So what do simple things like, okay, we see that a class is getting restless or not paying attention, maybe just make them stand up, sit down, breathe in, breathe out, relax, clap your hands, wiggle your fingers, simple movements like this. What is this? It's nothing but mindfulness into the curriculum and into the classroom. Now, how is this going to then help a student, or what are the factors that are going to help the student be engaged in such a class? Meaningful activities. We just move on to a topic. Bring the previous knowledge into the classroom. Known to unknown is always what we have learned. Do that. Foster a sense of competence, not amongst your friends or within your peers, but with yourself. If I was at point A, have I bettered myself and moved on to a point B? That is very important. Include the student feedback, that where was I stuck? Where was I able to or not able to cope up? Let the child understand the purpose of the activity and understand the activity itself. Provide
Yes,
autonomous support.
Yes, purpose is an extremely important part of education and how it needs to move ahead. Completely agree with you, Dr. Raina. I think, and I'm finding, I am feeling that the 5 minutes that you all have is just not enough to elaborate on what really needs to be done for quality education. There's so much that can be done. And like you rightly said, stress has become really the buzzword. You sometimes hear a 2-year-old or a 3-year-old also saying, I'm stressed, whether they understand the word or not. But yes, guided imagery, sensorial experiences, I think would really take children to another level completely. And these elements do need to be taken into account, when doing that. Thank you very much, Dr. Raina. Thank you so much for this. I would now like to invite Dr. Preeti Quatra, chairperson of Petals Group of Schools, to really tell us why quality education blended with next generation learning is important for lifelong learning. So like Dr. Raina said, actually everyone needs to de-stress, really there's stress is everywhere, not for children only, but even for parents, for teachers, for everybody. So there is lifelong learning that is needed for everyone. How can we start early for children and ensure that quality education blended with next generation learning is important for lifelong learning?
Thank you so much, Deepa, and good evening to all the my co-panelists. And I am really, really engaged with this panel discussion, and I am learning something or the other from each one of you. Such a beautiful discussion, I think, and as an educator, today we all are proving and proof that in this pandemic that we are a lifelong learner. We are the teachers and the right coaches for the next generation. This is what our NEP has stressed out. The teacher need to facilitate the learning. And in this pandemic, we have changed ourselves so beautifully, so rapidly, and actually up to the situation, because we have all started online classes, we have all started giving training to our teachers, we have transformed the bookish content into the online content. Our teachers are now feeling comfortable in front of camera. Every class is happening in the drawing room or the living room of the parents, but still we have proved that we have the right set of skills as a mentor and as a teachers. This is actually what required for the next generation. Next generation actually need a right blend of learning and right blend of attitude and skills, because what skills they are having today and what they are learning today is not going to be required tomorrow. What set of skills we are thinking that our children should know, should done this course and get selected in that job, but that skills which he is learning or she is learning today will become obsolete tomorrow. After 1 year, phone will become obsolete. Our children says, "Mama, aapko ye app bhi download karna nahi aata." The generation who has born after 2000 don't know how to use Snapchat and many others. I don't know the name of app. Sorry for that, but I don't know the name of app. But what our student actually required and next generation is required, they need engaged learning. I strongly believe a blended learning is a form of engaged learning. We all are educated. Today, I am learning from each one of you. Why I'm enjoying this panel is because I am feeling engaged and connected with you people. Once the next generation need to be taught today is new way of teaching. We should tell them how to learn, not what to learn. Everybody knows this fact, and this is a fact which help us to fight with this pandemic situation. We all know how to learn. That is why we are able to adopt the technology in such a beautiful way that we are able to deliver online classes. Ma'am rightly pointed out that earlier how these digital boards are using in the classrooms, but the teachers know that how to learn, so they have learned very quickly, because in this situation there is no escape. So they learned it, they applied it, and we are so happy that they are successful. So next generation learning is all about engaging the today's student through the next generation teaching. But for that, as an educator, as a responsible person for their learning, we need to define the learning goals, which indicate they should be ready for the future. They need certain set of literacy skill. Numeracy is required, reading is required, because whether you use laptop, mobile, or whatever medium to learn, but reading is mandatory. So learning objective and goals is required. But at the same time, in the classroom, we need to be flexible. See, whomsoever is ready to adopt the blended learning, first of all, the question we need to ask, are we flexible? Because blended learning, there is no set pattern or no best practice. Everybody is applying a different way. Some people create different workstation or academic stations in the classroom. Some use flipped classroom. Some use homework as a technology for the homeworks. Google Doc they use. So first of all, we need to understand whether we are flexible. And the second is we need to have a right mindset. Teachers should not be in such a way, if the child has achieved or done one worksheet, teacher should not go to the child and say, "Wow, very good." The teacher should now think, what else I can give to that child so that it is little more challenging for a child, so that a growth should happen. New children, next generation is very smart. They are born inside the technology, I believe, because a 2-year or 3-year child handles the smartphone of their parents so smartly that we feel illiterate. Nowadays, what we are observing, grandchildren are teaching their grandparents how to use YouTube for their satsang, how to go in Zoom classes for their satsang. We are observing, these are the real facts. So to adopt that and to welcome that with those pleasant surprise for that smiles which we all are having right now. So next generation need a right mindset. We should be flexible enough. And the third most important thing is training. But that training of teacher is not only important, a training of a management is also important. A training of a parent is very important. all the stakeholders need to start rethink. All the stakeholders has to understand that the generation which we are nurturing right now need a genuine quality education. What I have understood and what is my perception about the quality education is not if the school is good and where teachers are good. Quality education means who help me in the future to handle the challenges of the life. If my teacher is not there, if my parents are not there, how will I handle the situation? Do I panic? Do I just escape or exit from the situation, or do I take it as a onus and the responsibility? So next generation, the students need a personalized learning. Every teacher should know where my child stands for. If this child need a A-level worksheet, another child need A+ level worksheet, the teacher should feel comfortable to reframe the worksheet. The teacher should be comfortable to reframe the assignments, because every child is different. This is a time we need to adopt that every child is unique. So tomorrow we need a personalized space and a personalized learning, because we need to train them and build the future citizen as a global citizen. Now everybody is working from home, but there are certain set of skills which every organization needed. We are building our students and children and the citizen for the future. The future skills, what are the future skills? You call it a 21st century, 25th century, or when the earth is going to end century. That is collaboration. That is teamwork. That is how do I learn new things, because nothing will remain same. Right? So if they know how to collaborate, how to work in a team base, and how now inquiry based learning is not required. Now intrapersonal is required. A person need to reflect inside. A child need to reflect inside. Do I want to learn this? Because a lot of online courses are available, but who does it? We are not able to do it all. The child need to understand the requirement, need to groom himself. A teacher need to just sowing the seed of that. If the teacher is sowing the right set of seeds, I think that future is going to be very bright, and we all will going to witness that.
Yes, and we will witness that. I think that is something that we're looking forward to. And like you said, learning has to be engaged and connected. And even as adults, we need that. So for us also to be lifelong learners, I think we've learned a lot right now in this space, and we are the lifelong learners, and we hope that our children are able to see us role modeling this for them. So when they're teaching their grandparents to get onto Zoom for satsang, I hope that the children are seeing that learning never stops and it continues always. Now, thank you, Ms. Preeti, for that. And I'm now going to open up the question. Ms. Shehnaz hasn't been able to join in right now for some personal reasons, but I'm going to open this question actually to all of you. So I'd like each one of you to speak about a quotient that you think is important for development in the upcoming times. And I'll just call out your name. I'd just like you to take a minute, because we've got very limited timelines. I'd like you to take a minute to talk about the quotient and just what does it mean. So I'll explain it. Like I read about this decency quotient that I didn't know existed, but there's a decency quotient where people need to understand that it's not all about me, but it's about everybody else, and we work and we collaborate together, and to be thoughtful about others. That's a decency quotient. So I'm going to go through with each one of you one quotient that you think is really important and a brief one-liner about it. So I'm going to start with you, Seema. Seema, what do you think is really important for children or human beings really?
So tough call in 1 minute and just one quotient, because there's so many you just mentioned about decency, but something very close which I think that we should enhance in our children, and we should ensure that children develop these, because each personality, each child is different. But the social skills, when we talk of 21st century skills and we talk of collaboration, the key rather than competition, we're substituting competition with collaboration. We need to ensure that the social quotient increases in children. So with social quotient increasing, I would say intrapersonal and interpersonal skills, both are looked into. It's extremely important that we focus on social skills of children. Each child is different. There are some thinking kind of children, some introvert, some extrovert. 1 minute is not yet over, so I'm taking
Please do. Please take a 1 minute and.
Sometimes people don't know how to identify with that, and some very proudly say, oh, this child is an introvert child, or I am an introvert person, or I am an extrovert person. Whatever you are, those are personality types. But I think some social quotient needs to be developed in children for us to really assimilate well in society through the intrapersonal and interpersonal skills.
True.
There are many more interesting questions, though. I really loved your decency one.
Thank you. So now I'll go to Dr. Ritu Chauhan. Your quotient for the day.
Yeah, I will not talk something new, Deepa ma'am. This social question I really liked, and your decency quotient also I liked. Recently, I did a seminar on constitution. So there I studied about right to privacy that they have added in right to equality under that section 22, I think. So that privacy thing, when I look at it, and if we try to make it as a question, I feel that children should be given that kind of privacy when it comes to like gender and other areas, when it comes to all these child abuse and other things one panelist was talking about. So we need to have some kind of like this sexual orientation where we teach them in the school. Right now we are only focusing in our day-to-day life on concepts and subjects and other things. So I feel if you do that, it will connect to EQ, which is very famous, like emotion quotient. It will actually add on to like expression. The child will be free to express himself or herself, to communicate better, and I think it will provide security to the children. So privacy quotient is my word. I just
True. That's a good one. I'd like to invite Miss Anjali now to give her question for the day.
Yeah, I was almost going to say, and Ma'am Ritu stole from the words from her mouth. It was about emotional quotient, but now I'm shifting to the most important quotient I think we all need to have is creativity. According to me, it's in the as per the Bloom's taxonomy, which is like a triangle. It is at the tip of it, and all of us. It's not that we are not creative. So what can we do about it? But as creativity is in every individual, all we need to do is scratch it out and apply it, and I think make a good deal of our existence in emotional quotient, in IQ, in EQ, in whatever areas we call. If we are not creative and don't develop skills adequate enough for 21st century, I guess we'll get into the Stone Age. So creativity is my first and the last quotient.
Right. Thank you for that. Ms. Rashmi?
Yes, so in psychology, we have something apart from IQ, EQ, we call something called as an adversity quotient. I think that is a very, very important thing all of us should be working on, and in the pandemic scenario where we are facing so many uncertainties. So adversity quotient is something, how resilient are you to adapt to change, and how strong are you able to, even if you're falling back, how fast are you getting back? I think that is extremely important, especially in a kind of scenario that we are currently in, be it the student or be it the teacher. Every one of us, each of us are fighting our own struggles, and I think developing our adversity quotient and improving the emotional resilience really would be extremely, extremely important. And I think it is a responsibility of all the educationists and teachers, especially, to be able to inculcate such habits in young students in this time. Yeah, that's what I wanted to actually talk about.
You yourself look very young, and you've understood the adversity quotient really soon. So times are such. Dr. Raina.
So I too wanted to speak on adversity quotient because it is so important in the kind of scenario we are, even in the pandemic, when adversity to I would add on to it inclusivity also, whether it is race or it is a special need. So this is very important because this then builds on to one's emotion and makes your emotional quotient stronger. Like I said, during the pandemic, we have seen various gun firings, even by the police in the US, where the not accepting the black, sorry, no, I'm not being racist, but yes, those were the terms that were used. So adversity, again, when I talk, if it is in a classroom, to accept any child of irrespective of which race or society one belongs to, and to accept and include children who are not at par but maybe better or below what you think is the best according to you, and being empathetic and sympathetic to these people and children is very important in today's world when we talk of a global environment, or being really global citizens of the world. Thank you.
True, true. So I think we're coming up with our own quotients, and so many more quotients. The acceptability quotient, the empathy quotient, the sympathy quotient. I think so many more quotients are coming up while we are discussing, and that's a lot. Ms. Preeti.
Unmute.
Yes, can you hear me now?
Yes, yes, we can.
So the quotient which I strongly believe is a motivational quotient. See, it is an individual inner drive to achieve and to grow. We have seen many leaders, those who have come out with adverse situations and the environment and the community, but they were self-motivated and they have achieved wonders. If you talk about Dr. Abdul Kalam, if you talk about many other leaders, Mahatma Gandhi, they came out from the very adverse situations. They have not seen the environment which is full of facilities and equipped with a lot of technology, but they were self-motivated. They want to do something to the community, for the country. Because see, if you talk about the future, organization give equal opportunity to all, but those who are motivated, whose motivation questions are high, they are the successful person. They are the successful employee. They are the successful teachers. They are the successful leaders. There are so many schools are running, so many organizations are running, but you must have seen many in charges, those who want to do something different, those who want to achieve something for the children. They are self-motivated. So for me, in a minute, if you say motivational quotient is the best thing to achieve in anything, or anything you can achieve in any kind of a situation. Because if you say to the child, I believe in you, you are unique, you are you are good as you are, the child will be on the sky. Nobody can stop the child then. For me, motivation quotient is a very important thing.
True. I'm really happy that I got a chance to moderate this session. I've had some really interesting responses, and I think, the audience is going to take back a lot of the quotients, and you can develop your own quotient too. So motivational quotient too. And of course you have your spiritual, your happiness, and, there are so many more quotients that we need to develop. It's a tall order what we need to develop for children, and society is changing, has changed, and we can't adequately prepare today students for a society that exists today or will exist tomorrow if we continue to prepare them for the society that existed earlier, right? Because yesterday our teachers are coming from yesterday, so if we continue to do that, it's not going to happen. So in order to prepare students to play their role in the 21st century society, we will need to consider and decide how education will look in our schools and classrooms. And I think that's so important. So developing all these quotients, taking into account all the quality parameters that are there, everything needs to be done. And but I think we all must also always remember that at its core, the role of education really is to prepare students to become active, successful, and contributing members of a society, and healthy members of a society. Yeah, so the essence of education's role has not changed. That's what it needs, but the how of it and certain outcomes of what society needs has changed. So therefore, education needs to move in that direction. Yes, Miss Anjali, you would like to say something?
Just one small thing is that happiness is a very important factor. I guess we need tons of happiness in our education and in our daily lives. I think you could add that up, happiness quotient.
If I can, Anjali ma'am, if I can add to what you're saying, generally our schools used to, I mean, if we go look at the past, schools would ideally look at just the physical and the mental quotient part, you know, the IQ in academics, or just the physical, say, games and a little bit of kinesthetic development that would happen in children. So that was the traditional role of a school initially. I think schools are realizing this more and more, and they're looking at all aspects to bring in a holistic child. We cannot do without all of these quotients coming together to bring in the creativity, to bring in. Now, what was beautiful, of course, we need to look at social, spiritual, emotional, all of these quotients along with the creativity part, as you mentioned, adversity quotient, which I think this pandemic has taught us to be, because there was such a spurt, such a rise in the levels of depression in young children as well. And the online classes, or probably the screen time, was taking its toll on some of the children, with no outdoor activity happening at all. And we were hearing of so many cases of these kinds coming in. That is when we realize that when happiness quotient needs to be tackled or built in, reflection, again, children need to develop their own skills within. So their intrapersonal skills become extremely important in relating to people. And I think beautifully put in, you know, that how we can just go on thinking, you make your own which quotient to take in, and motivation quotient, okay, to build in self-driven children. It is important that children develop their own skills, you know, they are able to drive themselves to reach greater heights. Or each one of you, I mean, beautiful quotients you brought in. Deepa ma'am, I must compliment you with that decency quotient coming in. You could really think that you can go into all of these aspects, and that is what we want in our children. And that what would make them wholesome personalities and be future ready.
And she has brought in happiness because we can see everybody smiling, and that's a very important part. You can't make a child smile until you don't smile, and it's not inside you, you know. So thanks, Deepa, for this beautiful thing. Without saying it, it was there already. Thank you.
It's been a pleasure to have this panel. Like I said, I'm extremely honored to be a part of this, to be here moderating this panel, and I've really enjoyed it. So thank you so much for that. I think, we've brought in what all is needed for the way ahead. Truly, we've met the theme, and we've said quality in education in the contemporary world scenario. The way ahead has come out very clearly today. Thank you so much for that. It's been a pleasure. And thank you to the team of APAC for having us here. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Deepa ma'am,
Pleasure.
you moderated it very well.
The elements have come in the session, and all the audience, more than 3,300 audience are live watching now, and from across the country and globe. Good that this was an enriching session, as Anjali ji said, happiness, and Rashmi, who's also a psychologist, and all this can come only when there is a deep and decades of experience which all our panelists have right now. Thank you so much for moderating this wonderfully, Deepa Bhushan ji, and who's director schools for CP Goenka International Schools, and also Preeti Quatra, chairperson for Petals Group of Schools. Also Dr. Ritu Chauhan ji, Vice President, Manipal Academy of Health and Education. Sahana Seema Saini ji, CEO and Principal, NL Dalmia Educational Society. Thank you. Dr. Reina Jain, Director and Head, Witty Group of Institution, and Anjali Razdanji, Director, Academic, Solan Public School, Himachal Pradesh, and Rashmi Busi Reddy, Co-Founder for Campus Crop. Thank you very much for making this session a wonderful one and enriching.